Hello, everyone. I'm sorry for the delay in sharing part two of my marriage restoration testimony. I was struggling whether to share it or not at all because I want to protect my husband from shame or the possible backlash. But if this story helps or encourages others to not throw in the towel, then I'd be willing to share this. Yes, God restored our marriage. He healed our severely broken relationship. Presently, we're still not perfect. We're still capable of hurting each other, but I always remind myself that He who began a good work in us will be faithful to complete it until the day of Jesus Christ. Whatever happens, I can always look back and trust God that if He was able to bring us through those dark times, He's also able to get us through anything. Just to give you some background of part one, my husband left for work in Davao City and we had become content and comfortable with that setup. He couldn't come home regularly due to the long distance, so we only saw each other during long weekends or holidays. On his first return, he brought me a smartphone, which entertained both me and my kids. We were so entertained that there were times when I couldn't answer his calls because the kids were watching Juju TV on the phone, and that led into a gap in our communication. During his next vacation, he seemed to have lost interest in me sexually, which was quite painful. I had eagerly anticipated being intimate with my husband, but he rejected me. I couldn't help but nag him about it and question whether someone else had taken my place in a relationship. I even wondered if he found me unattractive or if he was hiding a sexually transmitted disease from me. It was all very confusing and emotionally difficult to cope with. So during this time also, I engaged in conversations through chat with someone else, hoping to provoke jealousy in my husband and regain his interest. However, when I told him about this, he didn't seem to care, which made me question my value in his eyes. As time passed, I was convicted by the Holy Spirit about this, and so I made a conscious decision to cease chatting with the other person. Instead, I turned to God and let Him fill my cup. As a result, my relationship with God flourished, and I experienced a profound love for God. Also around this time, someone handed me a book called The Power of the Praying Wife by Stormy Omartian, which encouraged me to pray for my husband. I also came across a verse in Isaiah 34:16, which said, "Seek ye out of the book of the Lord, and read, no one of these shall fail, none shall want her mate. For my mouth it had commended, and my spirit it had gathered them." So this phrase, "none shall want her mate," spoke to me. I may have taken this out of context, but it just revealed to me that God is greatly concerned about marriage, is greatly concerned about those who long for their mate. It is indeed the will of God for husband and wife to be together, and not to be apart for too long from each other. Knowing the will of God for your life will empower us to pray for it into manifestation. As the Lord Jesus taught us to pray, "Let your will be done on earth as it is in heaven." So I pray to God for job opportunities for my husband here in our place, with the argument that it is not his will for us to be apart for too long. I have also watched the movie The War Room, which inspired me all the more to pray for our marriage. Unknowingly, during those times when I was interacting with someone else, my husband, on the other hand, was involved with another woman and she became pregnant. I wondered if only I was faithful to the Lord during those times. I wondered if only I was praying for my husband during those times instead of seeking appreciation from someone else. Maybe I could have saved him from getting someone pregnant. So I was unaware of these events, and I believe God thought it necessary for my heart to be prepared first before allowing me to discover these things. In 2017, we were in a financial difficulties because he failed to send money for months, and I have stopped working in an office due to some issues. I also attempted online jobs but did not work out. I was selling beauty products to elevate our financial condition, and I was hoping that when he came home for Christmas, we would be able to pay off our debts. months. So indeed, Christmas vacation came and he was planning to go home. I was surprised when he said he would fetch us from my parents' house. I thought it would be a hassle for him to do so because I thought he was commuting a bus. But he came and he got a car with him. When I inquired about the car, he said it belonged to us. This revelation was surprising considering our ongoing financial struggles. I felt a mix of confusion and happiness at the prospect of having a car, but it raised many questions in my mind. I couldn't fathom how he could afford a car and began to suspect that it may have been a gift from a wealthy boss or a benefactor. So he spent Christmas with us, then traveled back to Davao for work before returning for the New Year's celebration. But during the New Year's Eve, I asked him if he could take me to church for the year-end party. He did, and I was so happy to have spent the new year with God's people in praise and worship and prayer of commitment to the Lord for the new year. I was so in love with God. My cup was so full. I was even prepared that when my husband would choose to go to his friends for a drinking session, I'd be all right. The joy that I felt did not come from the festive spirit of the season, but it came from the Lord Himself. I even remembered praying, God, you are more beautiful to behold than a firework. And I did notice that the more that I was drawn to God, the more that I felt special and loved by my husband. We were invited to a wedding anniversary celebration at his aunt's house. While I was at the year-end party, he sent me a message that he was waiting for me so that we could go together there. And to me, it was unusual because after having been apart for too long, I felt that it was not necessary for him to wait for me. So we went there together, and after dinner or after eating, he saw a friend and they had a drink. So I excused myself and told him that I should go and check the kids at home. He refused to let me go. He told me to just wait for him. So I stayed. He was like a different person. Previously, he would love to get rid of me while he was drinking so that maybe he could just do what he wants and be home whenever he wants. But this time, he asked me to wait for him. The next day, we went to the city to buy groceries and have a meal together because it was his last day with us before he went back to Davao. I had already convinced myself that I was not his priority. So while I was purchasing stocks for my little Avon products business, I suggested that he go and help his mom. She might need his assistance. However, he insisted on waiting for me, and his refusal to leave made me feel special, and I thank God for working in him while I was finding joy in my relationship with the Lord. At night, I went to bed last because I had to prepare the kids' things and clothes for school as the vacation had already ended. He was sleeping already, and I thought to check his phone. I noticed that he had a lot of messages on Facebook, but I couldn't open them because he had uninstalled his messenger. It was amazing that even though we didn't have a strong internet connection, the messenger app that I downloaded got downloaded and I installed it on his phone. There I saw everything that he had been hiding. I was shaking in anger and disbelief. I put down my phone and prayed, Lord, help me how to respond. Then I woke him up. We had a confrontation. He tried to deny at first, make up stories, until he confessed and asked me not to leave him. I said I would not leave, but I asked him to break up with her. He agreed, but I was not feeling at peace. I sent those pictures to his mom, and she came into our room angry. She hit him on his arms as she was saying how disappointed she was that he followed the footsteps of his father. Then she suggested that I go with him to Davao and deal with the situation. I did not have enough sleep that night, but I felt God's love. I went to Davao with him that day. I left our kids in the care of their grandma, but the kids were so clingy and had not been away from me for so long. So I was also struggling whether I should let him drop me off somewhere and go back to our house. But I was so hurt that I thought I couldn't bear being alone at home and couldn't bear spending time at my parents' house, hiding the pain and confusion. Because at that time, I was not ready yet to tell my parents about what happened. So I decided to go. I know I may not accomplish anything there, but at least I will be there beside him and can say anything and everything I want to say to his face whenever negative thoughts attack. By the way, he told me that the car was acquired through a profit from a project that he had entered into with a business partner named Sunny. Soon I discovered that the business partner that he was talking about, whom he said a guy named Sunny, was that woman. So my gut feelings had been right all along, that the car was acquired through a sugar mommy sort of. My husband begged that I should let him go back to Davao because he needs to continue the contract, be able to pay for the car. So after discussing these things with him, I allowed him to go, telling him to break off that ungodly relationship. I tried to trust him even though thoughts tortured me every night. I would have imaginations that showed him begging that woman for another chance, telling her lies, that it was her whom he truly loved just for the sake of the business he entered into with her. A lot of times I messaged him, nagged at him, and sometimes I just prayed my heart out. It had brought me to the point of praying for their child to die. My argument to God was the story of David and Bathsheba, when God did not allow the baby to live despite David's prayer and fasting. I asked God to take the child's life because she connects them to each other. This is one thing that I also learned in prayer. God may allow you to pray for anything. The Bible tells us to pray all kinds of prayer and supplications, to let all our requests be made known unto God. But out of the pain and hurt that you are feeling, you may tell God everything. But I can say that prayer changes you first before it changes the situation. By constantly talking to God and communing with Him, reading His Word, I learned that it is not the will of God for me to pray that kind of prayer. I realized I was like one of those whom they called Christian witches, praying misfortune to other people for revenge. I confessed to God and asked for His forgiveness. I found healing, which ultimately allowed me to rebuild my trust and love for my husband. Despite the challenges, God helped me overcome my insecurities, negative thoughts, and I was able to find peace and restoration in my relationship with my husband, even while he was still away. Part 3 would be about peace, prosperity, in my point of view after all these things that happened. God had given me a blessing after all the heartaches. I'll see you again soon. Thank you for watching and listening. God bless.